Greetings fans, hyperfans, and people just lost looking for videos of cats on YouTube. Decepticon Headmasters, I'm pretty sure I've reviewed these before. However, the more observant amongst you, and those that have read the video title, will see these aren't the fellows that I've reviewed before. Whilst I was quite impressed with the Hasbro release of the original figures, I did feel that they lacked a little something.
Make my monster grow!
So when I got the opportunity to pick up the oversized versions, I absolutely jumped at it. These three figures have been produced for the Chinese market by Weijiang, as you can see their Genericon logo there, and as well as upscaling, they fixed a few of the little problems that the original releases had. Now, whilst transformation, articulation and detailing is pretty much the same as the Hasbro ones, you can go back and see my reviews of those figures using the relative links. Instead, let's have a look at the changes that Weijiang have made to each of these figures. So, if you're not familiar with the Titan's Return release of Weird Wolf, you might not be able to work out the scale of these upsized figures. They're about the equivalent of a Hasbro Voyager. They stand at about 7 inches tall to the top of the head, and closer to 7.5, 19 centimeters to the shoulders. If I just bring in the first modern Headmaster, Brainstorm, you can see that they scale actually very well together. Colour and paint application wise, they're pretty much the same as the official releases. You've still got the red face, you are missing a tiny bit of paint on the sword, and the only other major difference is this silver on the chest and the peculiar logo. The reason the chest is silver is that's actually a clear varnish over a metal chest piece, so you can actually sort of feel that's cold, and it's a little bit heavier and gives it a bit more heft. Makes standing him up a little bit more problematic, but not immensely. The huge difference on this is obviously because it is upscaled, these hinges at the back are a lot sturdier than the original one. Mine isn't suffering from it too badly, but a lot of people have had this yellow plastic along here crack, or actually in my case, the clear red plastic of the door has started to go a little bit. There we go. You can see that that yellow is just lifting up. And a little bit more of it's just snapped off in me demoing that. Whereas in the Chinese one, it kind of is a case of because it's bigger, because it's thicker and less delicate, that problem is less likely to occur. Transformation for the Weijiang version is identical to the Hasbro release. There's a couple of small changes, the main one being that the back knee is a pin joint, so it only moves in one direction rather than the ball joint you had on Takara. It means he takes a slightly more awkward pose, but again it's nothing I'd really be worried about. You'll also notice that the claws don't have that steel paint effect, which I really liked on the original release, but especially because it's an upsized figure, it's something you should be able to put back yourself with relative ease. The heads still have that translucent red plastic running all the way through it, and the Headmaster can still fit in the gun weapon or in either of the two spots inside that canopy. The oversized Skullcruncher is probably the figure that has received the most love from Weijiang, both in terms of extra paint apps and some quite serious upgrades to its design. We'll talk about the bad thing first, which is the head on the original in this black plastic really does sort of set the face back and make Skullcruncher look like a more menacing figure, whereas Weijiang have just gone for the light grey. This is obviously because it's moulded with these pieces and these pieces, and it was cheaper for them to do, but I do feel it detracts from the figure a little bit. Like all the other Weijiang OSKOs, it does have some metal in it. Here it is this chest plate. It doesn't open up, which would have been a nice touch. You could have put some fake stats behind it, but again, it adds some nice weight to it. We've got a little bit more paint here. They've gone with blue rather than red. The waist has got a filler in there rather than this empty space here. He's got silver paint on the knees and silver paint on the toes, both missing from this one. You may also notice that the back crocodile legs appear to be missing on the Weijiang version. This is actually because they have implemented the hinges which we expected to be on the Takara one, and I guess were cut due to cost. Again, it's still not absolutely perfect. It would be nice to have some articulation there so that you could fold them up a little bit better and give him some heel spurs. It does help him stand up. As you can see compared to this one. But also just lets him be a robot in his own right rather than covering him with animal kibble. The other thing that they've done that's really obvious in robot mode is the voids in the arms, which are there for the hands to fold up into, have received typical Weijiang covers, which just open up. Come on. Let you fold those in and then cover them up. It might actually be worth talking about the weapons. The weapons are upscaled. These are 6mm ports as opposed to the 5mm. Just a tiny change, but it does mean that whatever you pick up from here is not going to be compatible with your other figures. It's certainly not going to work with the new combat system from the Siege line. The other change, which I feel is a massive glow up for this figure, is on the back. On the original figure there is a panel here which is used for putting the figure in crocodile mode, but this is a very soft squidgy plastic and quite often that gets stuck in there and it's frustrating as anything to open it up. On the Weijiang version, that's a hard plastic. It fits there quite nicely. It's got a finger cut so that you can lift that up easily, and it just makes transforming it a lot easier. Speaking of transforming him, whilst the Takara Skull Smasher is a decent sized animal form, the Weijiang version just goes on and on and on. The sheer scale of this figure really is one of the reasons why I wanted to pick up this version of them. It's epic. I mean, it comes in at well over a foot long, which just makes it a far more threatening looking thing. I mean, detail wise, the original had Decepticon symbols everywhere, and well, this one obviously doesn't. He still has those sort of really nice paint apps on the side. He's still got all the points, all the detailing, and even the paint applications on the floors here. Probably the most substantial difference between these two is actually once you get their mouths open. Inside you've got really nice detailing on each of them, but again this is the same hard grey plastic as, well, pretty much everything else on the figure, whereas here it's the soft squidgy don't sue us, we're trying to make it as safe as possible stuff. And I don't trust that to last particularly long, especially since I'm already hearing some horror stories of Transformers Prime figures where the oils from one plastic are leaching into the other and causing all kinds of horrible problems. But I have to say, apart from the grey plastic rather than black on the Headmaster, this is actually a much superior toy. So finally we come on to Mindwipe. Now when I reviewed the Hasbro version, this was actually the figure that I had not a problem with, but that I found least impressive. And unfortunately, I kind of still have to say that about the Weijiang version. Whilst the other two have got their diecast on their chest, here they've decided to put it into his feet. And quite honestly, this is the one that has sort of the least kibble hanging off of him and needs the extra weight in the feet least. Whereas the original one had two colours of paint added to it, the silver and the bat brown. The Weijiang version is just silver all over. It's silver on the grates, silver on the ankles. It does have the brown on the weird shield thing that everybody puts to one side and forgets about. More than that later. And on the back, you'll see that there is no additional paint on the wingtips. And the nice Energon pinkish window has been replaced with a sort of dull smoky grey one, which I suppose in bat mode makes him look a little bit less obvious that that's where you've got the pilot. But it was one of those nice touches that it's a shame they didn't carry over. There's not a lot of difference in the way it's moulded, other than, well, his arms are correctly assembled. This was one of the pre-release test shots, so they're still getting used to it on the production line. But without any big differences, I guess it gives me an opportunity to talk about the Headmasters. So the original Takara Headmasters are about 4 centimeters tall, and the KOs are just under 5. But when you get down to this scale of KO, you can kind of start to see where the corners are being cut. The whole head sculpt of Warpath, I think he's supposed to be called, it's actually the same head they used for Weirdwolf's Headmaster, Monzo, and just the faces on them are, well, they're a little bit derpy. I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but the eyes are sort of just visible under the helmet line, and it's kind of got this sort of cocked smile, where you have sort of a very straight mouth on the Titans Returns ones. If you can just about make that out. But the Weijiang ones kind of look like they're slightly embarrassed about appearing on camera. I mean, that's not a huge thing, and you're not really going to have them in this form for most of the time that you're either playing or displaying them. And if it really bothers you that much, you know, take a paintbrush to them and they're a little bit easier to paint up than the original Titans Returns ones, although it's worth pointing out that some of the Titans Return figures did have paint on them, and these ones obviously don't. I've just noticed a couple of other money saving shortcuts that they've done with poor old Mindwipe's head. He's glued rather than screwed. He doesn't have the holes in the feet like the other two, so I kind of feel as though this one was... It's weird, I'd have said that this one was made last and trying to save some money, but I'm pretty sure that it was Weirdwolf that came out last from these 3. So when you have these figures back into bat mode, everything that I found a problem on the original is still present on the upscaled one, and in a lot of cases just kind of looks worse. The soft plastic for the bat head, the fake bat wings and the wingtips persist on to the Weijiang version. These ones in particular, I'm upset that they didn't go with a hard plastic for. And the paint on this it's a little bit more blocky, and without the brown on the interior of the wings, the head just looks like it's stuck on rather than an intrinsic part of it. So whilst I love the upscaled Weirdwolf, I love the upscaled Skullcruncher, this one's actually kind of a little bit of a disappointment for me. As indeed was the original. I guess it's just a design that you can't easily fix. So if you don't mind having your Headmasters at different scales, maybe try and seek out the Hasbro version of Mindwipe and leave the Weijiang version over in AliExpress. So as a trio, the Decepticon Headmasters are a mixed bag. They're certainly more impressive at Voyager scale, and the improvements to plastic and some of the engineering fixes issues that I really did have with the original releases. Mindwipe again comes off worst, but throughout them there's a few missing paint details. Nothing you can't deal with yourself, but again you have to factor the effort of that in with your purchase. You can pick these up on AliExpress for anywhere between £8 and £12 depending on who you're shopping with and whether there's any deals on. I'm certainly happy enough with them to put them into my collection and let the Hasbro ones make their way to eBay. I hope you found this video useful, and if you want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe and the notification buttons. If you want to see more videos like this or anything else, let me know in the comments section. And until next time, if you're keeping them mint in package, you're not a toy collector, you're a box collector.